Hello and welcome back to Plague Projects. I'm Brenda and today we will be making some Fingerloop braids. Fingerloop braids go way back to the medieval ages and are one of the few historical crafts that have detailed instructional manuscripts from that time. These were used for lacing up clothing as well as drawstrings for purses. There are also fancier types that were used as trimming and decoration. This craft is perfect if you are interested in costuming of any sort, whether that be historical or fantastical.
No.
These braids can give an authentic touch to your costume. Even if you're not into costuming, this is still a really fun and easy way to make cords. If you make them small enough, these are great as bracelets. We are going to do a simple square braid with 5 loops using the palms down technique. Usually in braiding, they use a palms facing each other technique, but as a beginner myself, I found this way much easier. For your supplies, you will need some sort of thread. I used embroidery thread because that is what I had, although you can use yarn as well. The materials people used in history was silk, leather, linen, flax, as well as wool. You also need some scissors and, of course, your fingers. You will also need a sturdy place to tie off the end of your braid. I will show you how I did that a little later. The first thing that you need to do is to cut out your thread to your desired length. What I did was eyeball how long I wanted my thread to be, cut one to be double that length, and then cut the other 4 to match up with the first one I cut. These strings will be turning into loops, which is why you have to cut it out doubly as long. Once you have your 5 strings cut, we have to tie the ends to make them into loops. Do that by taking the ends of your strings, making sure that they are even. Wrap the 2 ends around your finger and insert the ends into the small loop you made with your finger and tighten. Do this with the other 4 strings. Make sure that the knot is in the same spot for all of your strings. Once you have your loops, we now have to tie them together. Join your loops by their knots. This will be the end that is tied to my sturdy object. Once you have untangled your loops and have them together in a circle like this, you will have to attach them. Take a smaller bit of string and tie a knot at one end like you did before. Once you do that, we will be doing a cow's hitch knot. So, now we have a loop. So we do that by slipping our smaller loop under the strings that we have joined. Then we open up one end of the small loop and we insert the other end into it. And then we tighten it. And that way it's secure. Once you have that, prepare your sturdy area. Since I am in a library, I used a whole bunch of books and a bookend, as you can see. I picked the pretty leather-bound ones because they're pretty. Other things that you can use are doorknobs, the handles on a dresser or a chair. I have seen other people put a clamp at the edge of their table and use that as their sturdy structure. As long as there is no fear of your braid slipping off, you are good. Mine is definitely not going anywhere. Now that you have your loops secured, you have to separate your loops onto your fingers. It doesn't matter what hand is your working hand. You do need to have 3 loops on one hand and 2 on the other. The hand with 2 loops is your working hand. On your working hand, you will need your pointer finger to be free because that is the finger that is doing the work. So that means that you have the loops on your middle and ring finger. On your other hand, you need to have the loops on your pointer, middle, and ring fingers. When you are working, your palms will be facing down. On your working hand, you will use your pointer finger and insert it into the first loop on your other hand from the top. Then insert your finger into the second loop like the first. Then grab the third loop by the string closest to your middle finger and pull through until the loop is well placed on your pointer finger of your working hand. Now, what you want to do is tighten what you just did by spreading your hands apart with some tension and then bringing your hands back to position. You have 2 loops on what was your other hand, which makes it your new working hand. You need your index finger to be free, meaning that the loops need to shift over by 1 finger. To do that, you need to take the loop that is on your middle finger and move it to your ring finger. Once your middle finger is free, you can move the loop that is on your pointer finger to your middle finger. Now your pointer finger is free to work. Another way to visualize the motions is to think that you are weaving your fingers through the strings. With your working finger, you can go over one string and under the next, over and then under again, until you get the first string of the third loop, which you grab and then pull through. Move your loops over on your new working hand and continue. This is a better angle of how you tighten the braids. You simply spread your arms with some tension on the strings. Some things to keep in mind when you are doing this is that the beginning of the braid is going to be the hardest to tighten, especially if the loops are longer than your arms. It is much easier to tighten when the loops are much shorter, like when you are close to finishing the braid, because with the shorter loops you have more leverage to tighten with. Keep in mind, you will need to put much more force into tightening the beginning of the braid as compared to the end in order not to get a warped braid. Mine did turn out a little warped. It does turn in on itself a little bit, but in the end, it is still able to do its job as a cord, so don't worry too much if that happens to you. If you want to make a braid that is longer than your arms, you can do that by enlisting a friend to help you tighten the braid. As you can see in this picture example, there is a second person with a paddle that is hitting where the loops and the completed part of the braid are joined. Also, just be careful not to put too much tension on your loops because they may break. This braid took me about an hour to do, perhaps less. I didn't time it, but it really didn't feel like it took me all that long. Getting a hang of it is pretty easy because the motions are repetitive. If you're interested in learning more about finger loop braiding, or if you want to know different kinds of designs, there are a couple of different websites you can go to. Loopbraider.com, for example, gives you a lot of tutorials on the different kinds of braids there are, as well as different techniques and designs to try. If you are interested in the history of this craft, you can go to the website fingerloop.org. The cool thing about them is that they have the real old instructions from the manuscripts from the 1600s. It's like in Old English, which is pretty cool, or Middle English, I think. Don't worry though, if you want to try out those braids, they do have translated instructions for you to try. If you are really interested, there are a couple of books that you can check out through interlibrary loan. Unfortunately, we don't own them. They are Take 5 Bows Departed, a 15th century braiding manual explained by Elizabeth Benz and Gina Bannet, and Dress Accessories by Geoff, Egan, and Francis Pritchard. I hope you guys have fun trying this out, and we'll see you next time on Plague Projects.